The Philadelphia Eagles will be without Dallas Goedert and Jordan Mailata for their matchup with the New York Giants. Can they still start fast in the first quarter for the first time this year? We'll get into it on this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase, joined as always by my co-host Gino Camilleri. We're brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you're going to get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Getting you ready for Eagles-Giants this Sunday at 1 o'clock, one final podcast before the Eagles try to get to 4-2 on the season. And Gino, they're going to try to start faster for the first time all year. The Eagles have not scored a single point in the first quarter, but they're going to have to do it without two of their best young elite players. Jordan Mailata at left tackle, Dallas Goedert at tight end, both ruled out with hamstring injuries. Mailata seems a little bit more serious, placed on IR, going to miss at least a month. That's tough, man. Fred Johnson's played really well this year in spots, but against a good Giants front four that is banged up. But if they do play, like that's a team that has Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Azeez Ojulari, who had 2 sacks last week, Kayvon Thibodeau as well. Like, that's a good front. So the Eagles are going to have to, if they're going to start fast, they're going to have to do it a little banged up.
Good thing is Kayvon Thibodeau is on the IR. Brian Burns is a little hurt, banged up, questionable. Dexter Lawrence is a little banged up, questionable.
Both return to practice, but yeah, it's up in the air.
I feel very similar to last week, Lou, where you knew that both teams were going to be even just a little bit banged up, and there were no excuses. Even though the Eagles got healthy, they still took some injuries in that game and were able to come out on top, unlike that Tampa game where everything kind of just escalated out of control. They were closer to the Saints game where that right side of the offensive line completely went down, but it was the next man up. This is an interesting scenario in the next man up category because you're talking about that left side of the offensive line. Fred Johnson is going to play the left tackle position. Usually, when one of your linemen is out, you're going to send tight end help his way in terms of blocking. But Dallas Goedert, your best blocking tight end, is also injured. We have to have a long-term discussion on him later on in this season, Lou. But what is going to be the plan? Is Jack Stoll going to be the guy that is primarily lined up on that left side? Are they going to play some 12 personnel to get 2 guys to that side? Maybe if Brian Burns is lined up over Fred Johnson, they've been doing some under center looks in practice this week. Maybe you roll Jalen Hurts to his right, get him away from that side.
Like what
maybe an extra lineman. Yeah, Tyler Steen, Jack Driscoll is back in the fold as well. Those are some interesting ideas. It's a big week for Jeff Stoutland because the strength of that Giants team is that defensive line. They're killing it in terms of sack numbers, in terms of pressure numbers. They are all over quarterbacks lately. Even if Dexter Lawrence is 60 to 70% healthy and Brian Burns is 60 to 70% healthy, that's going to be a tough matchup for those guys. And especially Landon Dickerson having a new partner to play with on the left side there with Fred Johnson. I think it's tough for Fred going against Brian Burns, somebody who's longer, lengthier, can get under the pads of a guy like Fred who stands a bit taller. That's an interesting matchup, but I think you got to work on getting Jalen Hurts to his right, getting the ball out quickly, potentially doing some quick mesh stuff on an island when you're doing 2x2, like let's just hit some
play action rollout. I mean, can we get play action roll on the run under center?
Inside, 100%. I'm with you.
I think overall too, Gino, the Eagles just need to move faster to start this game. I would love to see some tempo. And I think that's what Lane Johnson pointed to this week, why they haven't scored a point in the first quarter, is that he said they're just not snapping the ball fast enough. And this is the first year that Jalen Hurts is making more checks at the line. And I think he's done a pretty good job of understanding things, reading coverages, making audibles. But I do think they need to do that faster. And I would love to see one thing that Doug Peterson and that era of Eagles football did so well when they started off slow was use tempo to kind of kickstart their offense. And I don't really think the Eagles this year have done that a lot. I think they did it a little bit last week in the second half, and it worked. So
it's just about the only time that they did all season.
And I would like to see them just kind of think less and play faster. And I think tempo could help there, especially with Fred Johnson and some backups playing. Like, get them on the move and don't let the Giants kind of read you.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very good point, Lou, because when you go into these tempo situations, you're not getting that change of personnel with the defense.
Exactly.
You know exactly what they're going to have out there. They don't have time to substitute. So they're kind of limited in terms of coverages that they can run, right? A defensive coordinator wants to get different personnel out of there to check what you're going to do on offense. But if you're just keeping those guys out there, getting up to the line quick, we're just running some simple stuff. We're running some mesh. They love these fade routes. Like, they're just trying to get the ball out quickly. Let's get some quick hitters to Saquon Barkley to keep them on their toes, make them tackle time after time after time. I'm with you, man. This team is built to play fast. Unlike that 2018, 2019 team, like you were talking about, that was an elephant team. That was a team that just plodded around out there. They weren't meant to play fast, but Doug was still able to do that. There has to be a middle ground between the Chip Kelly and the Nick Sirianni right now, because it's not working. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword when you do get these changes in personnel. Jalen does have to see the coverages. He doesn't have Jason there to help him out. So if you're going to look at it like that, you also have to understand that he's excelling in those areas when he does have to read. Like, the blitz numbers are exceptional.
Oh, they're great.
They were last year because he has to make those decisions. Now, will it start to slow down for him maybe as he continues to grow in this regard? Hopefully, and that will allow them to play faster. But tempo is something from Pop Warner up to the pros that can help you just play fast.
It's a quick fix.
It's a quick fix. It's like just cherry picking in open court basketball. Like, stand at the 3-point line, let's get up and shoot.
I don't want them for 4 quarters to suddenly be Chip Kelly's offense, but I think to ignite this first quarter offense, that should definitely be something they utilize. And then, like you said, with a backup left tackle in and wanting Jalen to read coverages more, you can definitely slow that down as the game goes on. The more you have success, maybe you can build up a lead. Yeah, you're not going to play with tempo the whole time, but they've got to do something, because this first quarter offense, it's a nightmare, man. I mean, look at these numbers. They're the only team in the league that has 0 first quarter points. They only have 22 yards on 5 opening drives. On 10 drives in the first quarter this year, they have just 13 first downs. So it's got to change. And again, it's going to be tough, because without Mailata and Goedert, that's, as you mentioned, 2 elite blockers at different positions that can stop a really good Giants front if those starters all do play. But I mean, at the same time, still don't want to really excuse that for this offense, because they have so much talent still. And as we mentioned, the Giants are hurt too.
And I like the matchups for the Eagles on the outside. I mean,
every other spot, I love it.
Adoree Jackson is going to be out for the Giants, so that leaves guys like Cordell Flott on the outside. I like, who is it, Banks or Burks?
Banks, Deontay Banks, the first round pick from a few years ago.
From Maryland. He is the matchup that I see with DeVonta Smith. He's a guy that has that long speed. He's a little bit lighter than a guy like Cordell Flott. Even an Andrew Phillips, I think, would be a tough test for a guy like A.J. Brown. And Phillips is a guy who, he's physical. He likes to press. He also likes to blitz. So we talk about being able to counteract that. Those quick hitters, man, like, we got to be on the same page. For some reason, this team loves hitch routes. They're at the top of the league when it comes to running hitches, which is not sustainable. But when you have to counteract the blitz, that's exactly what you have to look for. So those times when Drew Phillips is starting to creep off the sideline, creep off the edge there, you got to be able to hit the blitz. And I think this is a yard after catch game for the Eagles. Giants aren't the best tackling team on the face of the globe. So if you're able to get this ball past the line of scrimmage, which is where the dogfight is going to be, I like the Eagles' odds to win things in the open field. But at the same time, Lou, the last thing I want to say about playing fast, remember, it's a double-edged sword. Remember those years of Chip Kelly when you're like, okay, we're down 7-0. He goes out there, runs 3 plays in 12 seconds, and then all of a sudden the defense is back on the field within a minute. The Eagles have to find some sort of balance, and part of that is just getting first downs and moving the football. And if it is a little faster, so be it. But remember, the defense, you got to give them some slack, man. They helped you out last week. I think you have to help them out this week. Some long, just grinding drives on this Giants team that would help wither down a beat-up Dexter Lawrence, a beat-up Brian Burns. And I think this team, when it is the next man up, they've responded so far, Lou. Like I like them with these guys stepping up. Yeah,
I was going to say,
is in for a big game,
had a
in my
great
opinion.
game against the Cleveland Browns. That was the best game of his career, and so that's good timing, I guess, if you're going to have a Dallas Goedert injury, and the guy just yet again cannot be relied on to stay healthy. This is just who Dallas Goedert is. So I guess it's a good time if you're going to need Calcaterra to have him coming off the best game of his career. So I agree with you. I think the interior is going to be a battle for sure with that offensive line against a really good Giants front. But I think the Eagles have the advantage in most other matchups on the offensive side of the ball. And it's why I bet pretty heavy on that unit for Eagles-Giants, as did Gino. LOE 3 presented by FanDuel coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, I've been doing it my entire life. The idea of spending $2,000 or more on, let's say, a Jalen Hurts rookie card where he's wearing number 2. I've got a LaShawn McCoy rookie card right here where he's wearing number 29. The idea of spending that much money, it just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they're immediately placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, auctioning, and more. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack for card purchases by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use our code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase.
This episode of LOE is also brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, which of course is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded prizes. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less than 2 to 6 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. I feel like Prize Picks is one of our best friends here at the Locked On Eagles podcast, and that's because we are always going more on those A.J. Brown picks and more on those DeVonta Smith and Saquon Barkley and, of course, QB1 Jalen Hurts. And if you want to get in on that action today, you can do so and now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks has also invented Flex Play, which means that you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. And also, if you want to play along guys like Drewski, Joe Budden, former MMA champ Sean O'Malley, you can now go to the community plays under the promos tab in the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each and every week. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5, and you don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select players and projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So to get in on the action over at Prize Picks, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, Eagles fans, we're getting you ready for Eagles-Giants Sunday at 1:00 in the Meadowlands. The Eagles trying to get to 4-2 on the season. Again, going to have to do it without some help from Jordan Mailata, Dallas Goedert. Good news, Jalen Carter did return to practice on Friday, as did Darius Slay, so they look pretty healthy on the defensive side of the football. And that's good, Gino, because the Giants are pretty healthy as well. Devin Singletary looks like he'll make his return to the lineup. Malik Neighbors as well. That's the big matchup. Him versus Quinyon Mitchell is must-see TV. I really hope those two are against each other for a lot of that game. That's going to be a lot of fun because it's probably right now the best rookie receiver of that class and the best rookie corner. But I will say, I feel pretty good about the matchups on both sides of the ball, even with the injuries on offense, like you alluded to on the outside. I know it's the Saquon Barkley revenge game, but I think the Eagles are going to be able to put up some yards through the air.
That's the thing that was killing me when I was making these selections. It's like, I know the tenacity that Saquon is going to.
Yeah, you want to make every bet be Saquon, right?
Yes, and he's going to go to the sideline like, Nick, give me the ball, give me the ball. You know he's going to want to do that. But at the same time, I love the matchups for the Eagles in the air this week, and especially how efficient Jalen Hurts was last week and how good AJ and DeVonta looked without Dallas Goedert.
Yeah,
you know it's going to go through them. So I think it's another high-flying game, Lou. I like the outcome in the air for this team.
And I think you can have your cake and eat it too. I think Saquon Barkley can have a big game that can be through the air as well and still have success with DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown. Remember, with Dallas Goedert out of this matchup and considering Jahan Dotson doesn't really have a big role in this offense, Barkley, Smith, and Brown are going to make up, 80-90% of your touches.
Yeah,
so
it's all.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of ball to go around in this matchup. Right now, let's take a look at the lines. The Eagles are currently 3-point favorites on the road. The over/under is set at 42.5. Gino, again, I think there's going to be points for the Eagles on offense. And let's get into our player props presented by FanDuel. We both had a Saquon Barkley bet to start things off. The Eagles have a lot of success in these revenge games. Saquon, the over-under right now on his total yards, receiving and rushing is 99.5. I took the over on that right now, set at -114. You took the over on his longest run being 18.5. That's at +100. I love that bet. Saquon Barkley right now leads all running backs in 20-plus yard runs. Or he might be second now behind Derrick Henry. I got to check on that. But explosive plays, they have come aplenty for Saquon this year.
And that's what I think it's going to be, Lou. I think that's going to be the one run that really ignites this team for that offensive explosion like we have been talking about. And that's been the one thing that you can rely on over the first 5 weeks of the season is even if he has a run where it's like, I said this on Crossover Thursday, he might go for like 2 yards and then 3 yards and then like -1. And then all of a sudden he hits one for 58 and we're like, okay, yeah, that's why you paid the guy 18.5 yards, Lou. I think that's low. And then 99.5 total yards. Do you know what this game reminds me of, Lou? I think you can figure it out. What revenge game does this Saquon Barkley for the Eagles and another team in the division?
Oh, is it the Deshaun Jackson game?
Deshaun Jackson said in that first game, I want to go for 100 and a touchdown, and he did exactly that. Saquon Barkley, I think it's the same exact thing, 100 and a touchdown from him.
I think it could be just like the A.J. Brown revenge game, too, a couple years ago against Tennessee, where he literally got the Titans GM fired.
Yes, I forgot about the most recent one. Right?
Yeah, so no, there's a lot of revenge games the Eagles have gone through. They normally, outside of the Djax one, they come out on the right side. I mean, look at the Carson Wentz game in 2022 as well. So, yeah, I like the over there on 99.5 yards total. I do want to see, I said this on the show Wednesday, Gino, I want to see Kellen Moore get him more involved creatively in the passing game as well. So I like those bets. You got to have Saquon Barkley bets in the revenge game in New York too. Then we both have a Jalen Hurts bet. I have the over on 225 passing yards. That's at +108. You have the over on 1.5 passing touchdowns. That's at +182. That bet hit for me last week. So I like that. We're running that one back. And yeah, again, I like the matchup through the air. And I think Jalen last week, did he have an MVP like dominating performance? No, but I think it was a huge step and he put up numbers.
And I think if you're going to look at the guys on the outside, Denzel Ward was probably better than anybody that the Giants are going to be able to put out there.
Even a banged up Ward was the best corner they've seen the last 2 weeks.
Without a doubt. And I just think if Jalen I always put the asterisks on it, Lou. If Jalen doesn't turn that ball over, how many times is he throwing 1.5 or 2 touchdowns in each game? It would happen every single time. He's just a ridiculous amount of interceptions in the end zone. If he gets back to last week, I think one of them is a big splash play. I would like to see one in the red zone be nice and decisive. Like, let's pick apart this defense. I tried to speak it into existence last week. Maybe that's where you get Saquon involved, right? Like, the talk is, the middle of the field hasn't been big for Jalen Hurts. Let's get Saquon on an option route over the middle of the field. Nice little.
Oh, trust me, I wouldn't shut up about it all day on Wednesday.
No, man, they have to find a way to get Saquon vertical one and use him in the middle of the field to get eyes off of the guys on the outside, especially if they're going to do these low percentage throws that are trying to get the corners to look inside so they can get behind them and stack them and have these big plays like they've had to A.J. Brown.
So we both got a Saquon bet, both got a Jalen Hurts bet. Now we've got some parlays. I took a big one here, +659. I have the over on Saquon Barkley receiving yards. That's at 25. I've got the over on DeVonta Smith receiving yards. That's at 50. And then the over on A.J. Brown receiving yards. That's at 70. So I combine that for a 3-leg parlay. Right now, odds set at 659 plus 659. Gino, you've got a Smith-Brown explosive play parlay, 2-legger here. DeVonta, the over on a 21.5 yardage reception. A.J. Brown's over on his longest catch would be 26.5. And I think that would have hit last week, if I'm not mistaken. So
100%.
I mean, both guys are, again, as we keep saying, they're going to have opportunities, not just for volume with Goedert out, but there's going to be explosive plays here.
When you sent me that parlay, I said, man, I just did the math in my head. You're talking about 70 yards from AJ, 50 from DeVonta. That brings you to 120, and then you get 25 from Saquon. That's around 150 yards.
We're banking on kind of what they did against Green Bay. Like they put together a complete. Am I banking on them having a complete game and not being who they've been the last month? For sure. So, but I think it's very possible in this setup.
And especially if you want that 225-yard overage in the air for Jalen Hurts to hit, you're saying these guys alone are going to cover
who's getting those
65% of that. I would say they probably get 85
right,
to
Gino,
90.
just based on the math. Like that's
just do it out in your head. You're like, is Grant Calcaterra
and Dotson getting 200 yards combined?
No. Is Grant and Jahan and Kenny, are they going to get 65 to 70 yards? Probably not.
I don't think so.
30 to 40, but if you're smart, like Nick Sirianni, the one thing Nick Sirianni is consistent about that he is always right on is that this past game goes through those guys in the air.
Yeah.
He has said that from the second they acquired A.J. Brown, and now they have Saquon Barkley in there. He is no fool. He knows the way to run this.
He's not an everybody eats kind of guy where he says it doesn't matter what players we have. He says, no, if we have stars out there, that's who's getting the ball. He says
they have to.
For years, like the offense runs through these three. He's normally talking about Goedert with Smith and Brown. This time it's going to be Saquon.
And I think we have to change that paradigm moving forward. That Saquon probably is the most reliable one over Dallas Goedert right now. And the explosive play element, Lou, I like the opportunities in the air for the Eagles. I'm going to keep saying that. And 21.5 yards for DeVonta. I'm pretty sure he averaged that per reception last week. I
think he's had that 21. Every single game. He's had at least a 20-plus yard reception, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least I know he had it against New Orleans. He had it against Cleveland. He had one against Green Bay or Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. So
Tampa, he was more pick
he was
and
out.
choose. Tampa, he was out. Excuse me. I love it. I love the opportunities against these cornerbacks. And
I do too.
If they get shut down, there are some serious questions as to like what the game plan was. But I mean, do the math. We keep saying it. Just do the math. They're going to put up numbers in the air.
LOE 3 presented by FanDuel. Again, the over-under here for Eagles-Giants at 42.5. And then the Eagles a 3-point favorite. I kind of like Gino taking the Eagles to cover there and taking the over.
That 3-point road dog is a weird one. I don't like when teams, especially in a division game, are at home and are getting points. That's kind of weird, but give me the over. I don't see a low 3 games in a row, Lou, where they would go under. I mean, no, not 3, excuse me. The New Orleans game, Tampa went over, and then last week went under as well.
There's just no way this offense can consistently not score. They haven't scored over 25 points since week 1. I mean, they're too talented to, even if they consistently, Gino, if they continue to start slow in the first quarter, I still think the floodgates will open in quarters 2 through 4, where they're not going to just keep scoring like 17 to 20 a game. So this over has got to hit eventually.
I don't think they stay low again. I think we're going to get, if anything, we get the ebbs and flows. Last week was down. This week, hopefully they come out.
Yeah.
And if they put up even 7 points in the first quarter, you're already on your way to hitting that over total by getting 5 more touchdowns combined. I still don't trust the Giants offense to help you put up any points, but I do believe the Eagles offense. Let's call a spade a spade. They've dominated the Giants in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
like
outside of that last
utter
game
domination.
last year, which we should just throw out to the universe. I think this team has owned this football team. The Eagles have owned the Giants. So yeah, I mean, I'm banking on history and I'm banking on the revenge game story and just the matchups in general. Coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles, we'll wrap things up with a agree or disagree question. It's got to do with Jordan Davis and Dexter Lawrence. So we'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Locked On Eagles is sponsored by America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Hopefully you're betting with us here at LOE3. Player props for the Eagles. All you got to do, put $5 down on one of those bets. How about Jalen Hurts over 1.5 passing touchdowns? Maybe parlay that with the over on 225 total passing yards. If you put $5 on that, you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, win or lose. Hopefully Gino and we can win you those bets, but regardless, FanDuel will get you $200 back in bonus bets at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. We thank them for sponsoring the Locked On Eagles podcast today. All right, wrapping up one final episode before Eagles-Giants this Sunday at 1 o'clock. Gino and I will be back for the post-game show following the game. Hopefully the Eagles can win their second straight coming off the bye to get to 4-2 and maybe start to go on a little bit of a run here. Mm-hmm. I want to finish things off with an agree or disagree question. We've been talking a lot about the offense, and we've been talking about how one of the matchups to watch is Dexter Lawrence against the Eagles interior. Dexter Lawrence has 7 sacks already this year, which is unbelievable. As you mentioned, even if he's 60 to 70% of who he was this year, a little banged up, that's still a scary player to deal with. And it's interesting with Dexter Lawrence against the Eagles this week because he's kind of a guy that we said, okay, Jordan Davis, we know the floor. He's a very good 2-down run stopping nose, one tech kind of player. But for the Eagles to justify trading up for him, he needs to take a Dexter Lawrence or like a Vita Vea type of step. And we're seeing like Dexter Lawrence, what he is right now is what I think Howie Roseman envisioned when he traded up for Davis, having 7 sacks. It's not always that a player of this build and style becomes a pass rusher like Lawrence has been, but it's possible, and they've seen it. So agree or disagree, Jordan Davis can still be the next Dexter Lawrence and reach that kind of ceiling when it comes to his pass rushing on top of the run defense.
I believe Fran Duffy put out a nice little comparison
that was interesting to see too,
between Jordan Davis and Dexter Lawrence. Right now, Jordan Davis is slightly behind Dexter Lawrence in terms of those productions in his year 3. I don't think Jordan Davis can hit Dexter Lawrence level simply because I didn't expect Dexter Lawrence to be this good.
Neither one of us did. I remember that 2019 live draft show. We did not like that pick for the
No,
Giants.
I dogged that pick at the time. I thought he was going to be just that 2-down, not able to rush the passer type of player we're talking about with Jordan. And he's the best interior defensive lineman now that Fletcher Cox is no longer in the division. Like, he's the next Fletcher Cox in this division more than
East,
likely.
Yeah, for sure.
Without a doubt. And the thing that scares me about Dexter Lawrence, Lou, is that 60 to 70% discussion that we're talking about on an injury. We had that same discussion with Vita Vea a couple weeks ago, and then he destroyed the Eagles. I don't see Jordan Davis ever being that type of player that it's like if he's even at 60 to 70%, he's going to
a team saying it doesn't matter,
dominate games.
Yeah,
I don't think he can get to that level. Now, can he be a Pro Bowl caliber player? I don't know about all pro, but probably like a Pro Bowler. Yeah, I think so. I think this year it's kind of strange for him. He lost a lot of that weight. His get off is better than it has been in the last couple years, but he still isn't refined as a pass rusher. It's a weird type of transition year. Year 4 is going to be the ultimate decider, but right now, I don't think there's, I'd say like a 5 to 10% chance he hits that Dexter Lawrence
I'm with
level.
You. And I think he could. I mean, Dexter Lawrence, he didn't really start. I mean, he had 2.5 sacks his first year. Then he did have 4, though, his second year. Jordan Davis hasn't come close to 4 sacks yet, 2.5. But then 2 of the last 3 years, he surpassed 7. He has 7 already this year through, 6 games? He had 7.5 in 2022, 4.5 last year. Like, I would hope Jordan Davis can be somebody that gets you, 4 a year. But, yeah, is he going to be somebody that, leads the league in sacks like Lawrence is right now? No. I can't imagine that happens. But I would hope there's some sort of middle ground where, I'm a player, as you said, year 4 is going to be very important, but year 3, year 4, that starts to be who you are. And, every player's progress is not the same, right? But again, normally you kind of become who you are in year 3 and 4. So I think he's probably there's some sort of middle ground between Vita Vea and Dexter Lawrence's ceiling and what he is right now. I think he can definitely get better and will still. I don't think he's done developing, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if he's ever going to be a game wrecker that teams are like, oh no, like Jordan Davis is coming to town. That's Jalen Carter.
Exactly how I was going to end this is if I'm a offensive coordinator, if I'm looking at the Eagles, I'm not saying, oh, we have to take Jordan Davis out of this equation. It's Jalen Carter.
And I think I'm thinking more about Moro Ijoma at this point than Davis. I mean, his pass rush numbers are incredible this year.
It's going to be big,
has been good too.
Especially because Jalen's a little banged up. He didn't practice on Thursday. He did practice fully on Friday. They're going to need that depth, and that's where I think the Eagles have the upper hand in terms of the trenches. Like, top heavy are the Giants for sure. Like, they have 4 to 5 guys that you're saying we have to worry about. Azeez Ojulari and Brian Burns, even if he's half healthy, and if Kayvon Thibodeau is playing, you would have to worry about him. It's going to be a tough test. I think you win this game in the air. See if Daniel Jones can throw with you. That's how you got to win this thing. Like, what you can do in the air. Let's see if the guy on the other side of the ball, who has not done well at home over the first 6 weeks of the season, you got to find a way to come out quick. Let's get a first quarter touchdown and get some points. I mean, it's not going to become the 27th worst team with the Patriots at 14 points in the first quarter. You can surpass a couple of those.
It's not a lot to ask in my opinion.
Last.
No, I totally agree. Eagles-Giants, 1 o'clock on Sunday. Eagles trying to get to 4-2. We'll have the post-game show for you right after the game right here on Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. We're going to sign off for now. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening. Let's go, Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.